Hi Scorpio. Welcome to your mid-November reading. A couple of days before we get to mid-November, but there's an eclipse today. Happy full moon. Happy lunar eclipse. If you're wondering about the screaming and shouting in the background, there's two things going on here. There is a group of people eating outside in the outside terrace area of a synagogue, which is across the street. And then right next to it is a children's school where the children are out for recess. And they have a gym and a running track and a basketball court on the roof of their school. So they're directly across from me. I find that Scorpios find the sound irritating. Well, most people just think it's cute that children are playing. So I apologize that it's happening during your reading. But welcome to your mid-month Patreon reading. King of Pentacles, a great way to start. So you want as much control over today as you can. And that is difficult because today marks a day, the lunar eclipse marks a time for you where you can't help but notice that the message that keeps coming back to you is like you don't have as much control as you think you do, and you can't have as much control as you want to. It's disappointing because there's a part of you that wants to be very celebratory and be in a good mood and vibing high. And it feels like people aren't cooperating, especially those that you fully feel that you've invested a lot in. That's when it gets really difficult. Like, it's one thing if people aren't really playing ball or they're not being very nice or they're not helpful. It's another thing when you feel like you just want to be happy and vibrant. It's your season. But the people around you, people who should be pouring into you as you have many times poured into them, are just like cranky. It's like they're jealous it's your season, so they can't have as much from you as they usually can, or they're jealous that you're the center of attention and they always need to be the center of attention. And it's weird to you because you love putting other people in the center of attention. That's like a service you provide for your friends. It's a service you provide for your loved ones. You can actually elevate somebody with your attention. And so to feel demoted by the lack of somebody important's attention is really weird. Like, it feels personal. It feels deliberate. That's the word I was looking for. It feels deliberate. Aside here, I really like the mid-month reading, especially the way we're doing them, because it's such a throwback to how I used to do them when I first started, just like full intuitive. You know, these set of truths and realizations, and basically what they boil down to here is like people you've put a lot into who for some reason can't share the spotlight or can't seem to even be gracious and grateful and keep in mind what you've done for them. It's really painful for you. It really, really, really hurts your feelings. And you know how circular that can be. Staying in that is not going to help anyone. Of course, it's very painful. I think more than that, it's just confusing to you. Like, if you could wrap your mind around it, if you could understand it, if there was some logic to it, if something had happened, you could be like, oh, okay, this is the... But it does feel... Part of the reason it feels so personal is because there's no context. Like, it just feels hurtful. There's nothing around it to be like, oh, this is why things are happening like this. It really does feel spiteful almost. What exactly? The way someone's behaving, someone really important, the general way the universe is treating you today, of like just not letting you have the control that you need, but that you falsely felt like you had, especially when you woke up this morning or a couple of days ago and you're like, yeah, I'm starting to feel really in control of things. That makes it worse, because it's like, no, I was just starting to feel like I have the hang of this. That's the eclipse. Because the eclipse, you have the sun meeting up with Mercury, right? And then you have this full moon meeting up with Uranus. It's just, let's get down to the bare bones of it, right? If we need to start again, let's start again. So many different areas of your life where the excess in certain parts of your life is really highlighting the lack in other parts of your life, whichever way the seesaw is tipping more, love or money. But the urge you have in this moment to just fix everything and right all the wrong, you need to get a handle on that. The day that you realize the thing, or that you feel the pain, that you feel the betrayal, the day that it sinks in is not the day that you implement changes. Sit with the feels. Don't get lost in them. Don't make it into something circular that makes you vengeful and spiteful. But allow yourself to feel something without immediately jumping to, I should be better than this, let me fix this. Or immediately jumping to, that person deserves this, that, or the other, and let me be the harbinger of, let's not do either of those things. Instead, let's slowly begin to process these feelings. That's a much, much better option here. And what do I mean when I say process these feelings? What exactly are we processing? This lack of control, is it really about one person or their behavior? This lack of control denotes a much bigger issue here, and it has nothing to do with the external. Your fear of not having control, which then makes you aggressive, trying to solve the aggression is going to do nothing. Trying to calm yourself down is not going to do anything unless you can get to the root of why it is that you feel that you need so much control. There are people around you, especially people who trigger you quite some, who don't need that level of control. I mean, they have control over themselves, but they don't need to have control over everybody else. And there lies the distinction. This eclipse is hard on you because it makes you examine the frailty that leads to your strength. And it's a very uncomfortable topic for you, because that need to control, it does come across as strength. But when you truly, knock against its sides, what you find that it's hollow. You find that it's hollow. So what does this need for control stem from? Where is the fear? Where is the lack? Where is the isolation that's then making this such a prominent drive, right? In some cases, with Scorpios, it becomes the most important driving factor, right? This is your most desired impulse, to have control over things. Now, when I put it that way, it may sound really distasteful to you, but think about it. Think about whatever is frustrating you right now and how easily it could be solved or be better if you could just handle it. Right? That's what it stems from. For you, it's not, you don't see it as a way to cover up any wounds. You don't see it as a band-aid. You don't see it as some sort of panacea for all your issues or problems. No, it's just, it would be better, right? It's just that I could do it better, so I should have control over it. And you can kid yourself into thinking that's what it is for a long time. But underneath that very sound logic is still the question of why. Why? Because it would be done better. Is that really why? Or is it because if you control every aspect of something, then there can't be any surprises? And maybe we're afraid of surprises. Maybe surprises have never been pleasant. Maybe the only way to immunize ourselves against that kind of trauma, shock, and pain is to make sure there are never any surprises. But then you're going to run into an issue, dear Scorpio, because life is full of surprises. And then you start to see how this way of thinking, this need for control, this fear of not having control, puts you in quite an antagonistic dynamic with the universe itself. Does it have control or do you have control? As soon as we get into Sag season, this is a question you are going to have to answer. And I don't know if you can even admit to yourself how much happier you would be if somebody else was in control. And if that doesn't do it for you, look how disrespectful these cards are, because they're like, you've been in control this whole time. Look how that's been working out. Maybe it is time to try something new. Maybe it is time to have a little more faith. Because I can sympathize the amount of confusion that one must feel. The utter devastation, the fear, the terror that one must feel if the unknown is always associated with pain. Then to feel as if life is spiraling into the unknown and you have no control can really trigger some deep, deep pain and more importantly, terror, fear. The Hermit is your very clear sign to treat this confusion, this despair, seriously. Sit down for 10 minutes. Put a frequency on. Put some music on that you like. Try to dismantle, just sit down, take a few deep breaths, and try to dismantle all the things right now that seem to be piling up on top of you, that are seemingly out of your control, that are making you feel as if nothing makes sense. It's really important to do that right now, because processing all these different pressures is going to start to break them down and make them make more sense. But also they're going to start to slowly soothe that part of you that wishes everything could be just the way you want it to be, so you didn't ever have to feel this uncertainty and pain. Now, hopefully, through the course of late November and into early December, what we'll start to work with here is the idea that within that uncertainty, something else can live outside of pain, betrayal, lies. Right now, that space is filled with pain, betrayal, and lies. Right now, it does feel like people are not just conspiring against you. It does feel like that's the real reason the control needs to be there. Because when it's not there, when your watchful, protective eye isn't there over yourself, these are the things that happen. So I understand, if you've been listening to the reading and saying, but I don't need a sense of control out of that fear. It's more that I have this really protective nature. And I have to take care of the people around me, my friends, myself, everybody. I need to, that's why the control is necessary, to create a safe environment for all the people that I love, so, the roof isn't falling down around their heads. And then when I can't provide that safe space for myself or for them, or then I put them in chaos because I can't provide that space for myself, it's hell. It's a hell that I don't want to ever revisit. I don't want to live like that. So yes, I need a certain modicum of control, because this alternative option is just too painful. I can't do it. I get it. But whether the control and the need for control, the impetus for that, is coming from a need to protect or a need to redirect, the narrative, whatever it is, your need to control things, whatever it's stemming from, whether you think it's a noble ideal that it stems from or not. You know, I'm not saying you're all doing it with this nefarious agenda. No, of course, it's done from a very good place. But regardless, and I know you hate when I use that word, but regardless of what the motivation, you rob yourself from having any truly spontaneous, authentic experiences. You rob the people around you from being able to have those experiences with you. You can take situations full of potential and growth and evolution and excitement and, you know, things that could really open up the whole world to you, things that could really take you down a million different paths. And you never even get started because the deep suspicion that is associated with anything that you don't have almost complete control over, it keeps you from availing a lot of life's opportunities and the gifts that life tries to give you. And I know that's hard for you because, you know, you can't do things that you sense and feel are wrong. And here we run into a really interesting little thought experiment. How much of the Scorpio's intuition is intuition, and how much of it is them being able to exert an enormous amount of influence on their surroundings? You know, I don't feel like going tonight because I feel like something bad is going to happen or I'm not feeling it. And then they go and they're not happy being there. They're miserable. And then something happens. And it's like, you see? But whenever that happens, I'm always very chicken and egg. Like, yeah, I see, but I also see that you were here for X amount of hours giving this energy. So it's, you know, being as powerful as you are, it was bound to happen. So it's it's a loop, right? And it's so heartbreaking. It really is, because there's so many amazing opportunities that are genuine and they're real and they're fun and they're exciting. But again, exciting becomes kind of a trigger word because exciting is under the umbrella of uncertainty, right? This reading reminds me a lot of the conversation I had with my kid where I called him out and was like, why do you just watch The Office over and over again? Like, can't we watch something else? Can't we do something? And then later I would find out that The Office is one of the, you know, du jour, like it's their favorite, people who have anxiety, because they know exactly what's going to happen. The topics are never too heavy. And people who have anxiety adore watching things where they know what's going to happen next because it soothes their anxiety. Now, if you were to stretch that behavior over a person's whole life, you would get some idea of what this reading is pointing to, which is this cannot continue like this. It's safe. It's a coping mechanism. It for sure works. But what it takes from you is the experience of seeing something new, doing something new that you don't have any background for, and not going into it expecting it to be terrible or to be a disaster, but actually being able to enjoy your enthusiasm and excitement because you're able to discern in mind and body between anxiety and excitement. And I suppose that's where the conversation really does go, right? When we're talking about power, when we're talking about money and success, the things that, you know, Scorpio, really, these are important things for you. The conversation of mental health and mental wellness can get lost. And we can get stuck in very destructive, isolating thought patterns and beliefs. And we're just like comfortable, you know, we're familiar, it's a solid structure that we can lean on. So even if it's not a good structure for us, we can still lean on it. So we do. And some Scorpio lean into it. But either the eclipse has already done it, or because this is the eclipse that ends the season of eclipses in 2022, within the next 3 or 4 months, there is an air sign moment, probably a Gemini moment, but it doesn't have to be, just someone who is very clear with you, who lets you in on how much you're missing, how much you're taking away from yourself, how much you're taking away from your dream by being not just cautious, but by abandoning things that really do excite you, that really could change your life, because you need that control. There's also a Libra energy here, very much tied to family and stability, and they're not going through a good time. They're seemingly, oh, the front is amazing. The front is like, everything is fine, don't worry about anything. And I think that you're probably one of the only people around them that can actually sound this trumpet of truth. Things will move quickly if you do. I suggest a little help from a mom figure or a Cancerian figure. If you want to reestablish this harmony or this stability, but be really careful in the way that you're talking to people regardless of their sign, but especially with the Libras and the Cancers. Be careful in the way that you're expressing yourself. Make sure that you're always making it known that you're leading from a place of love. I also find, and it's true for me, so it's okay when I say it, but I also find that it's really easy to get people to be compassionate towards you when you're honest about just really not knowing what you're doing or what you're saying. Like, listen, I don't know why I'm saying this, but this is what's on my heart. This is how I'm feeling. So not just leading with love, but leading with an enormous amount of humility. Let's say that. When it comes to this Capricorn influence, the ego, the ambition, the Leo influence, it's really confusing right now because things are stuck, and that can make you feel really weird about yourself. It can make you kind of turn inward and isolate more, or whatever you do when you're being toxic. It can make you a bit snippy to be around, a little competitive, a little overbearing, like you're pointing out people's mistakes and stuff. When you start to feel that irritation and frustration of things not moving forward, take a step back, do the counterintuitive thing. Take a step back and really take stock of everything that you have, and try to find yourself within this energy of contentment. And whenever it's hard for us to find that, it's an easy fix. You have to look at the people who have less than you. You have to look at the people who, in every sense of the word, have less than you and would love to have even an iota. So that's, that should be your motivation. That should be your motivation right now. How do I have these tough conversations? Once I realize that things are outside of my control, I'm gonna have to have some conversations instead of trying to maneuver, manipulate, bully, get angry, whatever. Oh, for God's sake, stop texting me, leave me alone. Right? And then when I start to have these conversations, it's going to be really easy for me to be very Scorpio and just say things exactly how, and that can cause a lot of hurt feelings and ruffled feathers. So since I'm going to engage, since I'm not going to control, since I'm going to be in my life, since I'm going to allow these experiences and trust that I can be excited about things instead of having to be nervous and afraid of them, because I'm going to trust the people around me to not put me in those positions, especially when I'm making myself vulnerable. So then I must pull back and reclaim my energy a little bit and be very cautious and very kind of subtle in the way that I'm giving it out, and careful with my words and delicate, because I know that the things that I'm saying right now, I'm not going to be able to take them back. And I know that the people around me, much more so than me, are going through a really tough time, and they're trying really hard to hold on to some semblance of what they used to have. Some of these people are even trying to hold on to you, Scorpio, very hard. And I wouldn't buy it. I wouldn't go for it. I think it's more for show. I think that this eclipse is going to reveal something to you about a situation where someone either wants you back or is trying to talk to you, or you see something in them, either very, very good or very, very bad, and you're just like, okay, I get this completely. I get, you know, like there are no mysteries about the situation to me anymore. I get what you want. I get what I want. I get how it should have been. I get where I messed up. And then from there, you have a decision to make. You know, this could be about a job. It could be about a relationship. It could be about an ex. But the point is that when you step outside of this version of you that needs control, the version of you that's afraid, the version of you that's tense, then you have a chance, you know, to look at every relationship in your life again, because you're different. You're looking from a completely different perspective. Some relationships, from this new perspective, relationships that could never have worked before can bloom. Other relationships that really worked well can't anymore because you just don't want that level of control. You don't want to have it anymore. So you see, this eclipse is one of those moments where you can really judge the change within yourself by going back to things and seeing how you react to things. And it's going to be so different than how you've usually reacted to those things. The way, like when we read a book and we identify with a completely different character the first or the third time we read it, and we're like, whoa, look how much I've changed as a person, right? In the same way, it's healthy at this time when these things from the past come back, or you need to talk to people who are really stressed out and you can tell they're going through a hard time. It's important to see where you are in relation to all these people now, because of the things that you're understanding, because of, you know, this transformation that happens where you have to open your hand and you have to let go of control. And who is the Scorpio that emerges behind that need, that compulsion? I love you so much. Happy eclipse, baby.